Let's talk about the live EP now, which came out 50 years ago in 1975. What is the context of this release?
Well, it was a tie-in with the 13th anniversary. This was how it was kind of badged, really, celebrating 13 years of Quo, which does seem like a bit of an odd anniversary, really. But here it is.
Mm-hmm.
What was great about this, of course, was it was a picture sleeve, which if you were in the UK, you were used to this.
Which is just a standard record label with an outer just sleeve. Yeah.
But when this was released, it was a picture sleeve and a great picture sleeve, and a great version of Roll Over Lay Down, obviously, which it did chart, although it didn't get very much radio play, if I remember rightly. It really, it wasn't, I don't know whether it was just too heavy or too long or whatever it was. But it did chart, it was top 20. So it was certainly very welcome by the fans. I do wonder about this because it's well known. I don't know if it is well known, actually. It is known, though, that they were recording, it was Stoke, Southend, and Lancaster and University, I think it was. There were definitely 3 gigs that were recorded. And I think it's, definitely the Juniors Wailing and the Roll Over Lay Down from 2 different gigs, and the Gurdon Doula is from a sound check, I believe. But the fact is that they recorded at least 3 gigs. Now, I'm wondering whether they've reached a point, bearing in mind they'd had several albums out by this point. It was a point where bands naturally would release a live album. So my thoughts are that they were seriously considering recording a live album at this point.
Yeah.
And that's what the original intention is of these recordings, was that this was for a live album, not so much an EP. And I just wonder if the EP was almost like an afterthought, because they'd made these recordings, which I have got a thing here where Francis is talking about it, where he's saying that, I'll just read it out to you. It's in this old magazine that I've got here. He mentions Bristol here as well. We recorded Bristol, which nearly killed us because of blah, 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 blah. Then we did Southend, Stoke and Lancaster. Lancaster was just tremendous. Everybody's pleased with the recordings, but it was trying to get that feeling onto tape. That was the hard thing. And I've got a feeling that they for whatever reason, they ended up not being entirely happy with the recordings. So I do think that it was actually going to be a live album in 1975 that was being recorded. One thing that I was intrigued by, those who remember the tour of 1975 following the release of the On the Level album, it wasn't really the On the Level tour. I mean, we all thought of it as the On the Level tour, but the tour program is this.
Which is, it says Status Quo Live with an exclamation mark. Yeah.
Yeah, and they've got some extra pictures there. Now, this is what happens when you spend a lot of time on your own sometimes. I was looking through the program and thinking, what struck me was there's no advertisement for On the Level. I mean, on all the other tour programs, whatever the tour is, they've got the advert in there for whatever the current album is. So
Yeah.
thus, it's the Blue for You tour or the Can't Stand the Heat tour, whatever it is. But this, the only thing that we do have is we have this,
which is an advertisement for the live EP.
for the live. Well, this is for the live EP, okay?
Yeah.
But bearing in mind that when a tour is planned and a band where such were Quo had reached that level where things have to be planned well in advance of what's going to happen, and things like when you bring an album out, you have to take into consideration not just the recording time and then the printing up, printing and pressing and everything. All the pressing, the whole process has to be factored in to what's how the year is going to unfold in terms of what's going to happen, when this is going to be released. Right, we're going to release Down Down, and then a month later we release the album, blah blah blah. So this is all very carefully planned, because obviously you've got to make allowances, as I say, for the pressing of the album and the printing and all this stuff. Likewise, when there's a tour, you need to have the tour brochure sorted out. So I don't know. I just find it intriguing that it's sort of focusing on the EP rather than the album release. Yeah. I mean, there may be nothing in it, but I don't know. It was just something that struck me, that they'd gone to the trouble of recording these gigs to then only release a 3-track EP. Now, whether the EP was kind of like an afterthought because they thought, well, we don't like what we've done or we've recorded, or it's not quite reached expectation, but we need to get some money back, so let's put this EP out. But, whether it was just something along those lines, I don't know. It just seems different from the usual pattern of going about things.
And in the years since, people have tried looking for the complete recordings, and I believe only sort of a handful appear to exist. In addition to the live EP tracks, we have also Roadhouse Blues, which appeared on 1 or 2 expanded editions of On the Level, but that is from Southend, I believe, because I think Rossi says during the bit in Roadhouse Blues, oh, that sounds more like Southend, and it does give you an idea as to what an album would have sounded like, and it's kind of unusual that one has survived where the others have just fallen by the wayside.
Yeah, I don't really know what happened. I think I did. I think I was having a chat with Luke Hargreaves about this. Can't remember what he said now. But obviously Andy Gamble, who's been an absolute star in locating, recordings that have kind of ended up gathering dust somewhere. He's managed to unearth them, which we're all about to experience his efforts with the live album release. So whether I would probably think somebody's got somewhere at least some rough mixes of those gigs, because the band was to listen to at home. That's a standard thing. So then, Francis may well have in the back of a cupboard somewhere some cassettes or something with things on that have never been heard outside of the band. I do know that I was chatting with a guy, the roll overlay down on the EP, the whole cuckoo thing.
Mm-hmm.
This guy was explaining to me what was actually going on. I don't know if you know about this story, do you?
I don't think so. No.
Well, he was the tape operator at one of the gigs, and I don't know if it was Southend or one of them, but he said that because of the nature of the tapes, sometimes a tape would run out halfway through a song. Because everything you got to remember, everything back in the 1970s was not all click tracks and everything synced up and stuff. Everything was very organic. He said that the reason that Francis put the cuckoo in there was it was where the tape had to be changed over, because what they did was they didn't have enough tape to do. It would often run out at that point. So what you would do is you would have a signal so that when it came to splicing tape together, there was a signal there. And if you also listen, you can hear John. He hits the cowbell as well. But that might be more to cue the band in for the next section. And but yeah, this was what this guy told me. He said the reason that that's on there is because it was for the so that they could link it up. So, well, that explains that, because it's a bit sort of, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Why cuckoo? You know.
Yeah, you just sort of think of it as one of those quirks that has kind of developed over years, but there was a practical reason for it.
Yeah. I mean, but back then, like I say, lots of everything was really organic. The song remains the same. Do you know the Led Zeppelin film? The song remains the same. Have you ever seen
I
it?
haven't seen that one, no.
No. Well, in it, there's I'm digressing a bit here, but in it, there's like these fantasy sequences where they cleverly slotted in during certain long solos, like keyboard solo, guitar solo. There was like these fantasy sequences of each individual band member. And the reason behind that was the poor people who were actually filming it, some of the Led Zeppelin songs, the extended jams, went on for about 20 minutes. They've often run out of film. So what would happen is they go, well, I haven't got a complete version of Dazed and Confused because they've ran out of film. So when they all got it back and they were trying to edit it together, they had to do these the kind of challenges that people, when they were recording stuff, they had to deal with. So it's not like now where everything's digital and it doesn't matter how long it take to do something. But back then, you've got like a reel of tape or a reel of film that's only a certain amount of time you've got in length. And if somebody goes over, if a version of 4,500 times goes on another 10 minutes, you're a bit stuck. So, yeah.
Yeah, so with the live EP, I mean, that obviously would have, if it had come out as an LP with at least one of the concerts in full at the time, that would have meant that they might not have recorded the 76 Glasgow Apollo.
Yeah. I think the thing with the Glasgow gig, though, the Quo audience in Glasgow, of course, the reason that they were picked was because they had something that other Quo audiences didn't have. Because outside of Glasgow, the whole chanting thing, that was a Scottish thing.
Mm-hmm.
The Quo.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody did that outside of Glasgow. Well, they maybe did it in Edinburgh, or maybe some of the other. But that was not a thing until the live album came out. And then, of course, once everybody had heard it, then everybody was doing it. Wherever Quo went, whether it was, Australia or Japan or Germany, everybody from that point ended up doing that chart. So I can see why they thought, oh, yeah, we've got to record in Glasgow. Let's book 3 nights, and then we should get at least one good night out of that. But that's another story. We can do that on a Quo live critique.
Indeed, because the expanded edition is coming out, newly mixed and mastered, all 3 nights by Andy Gamble and co of AVP Media. That's a very exciting release, and hopefully, it will lead to, not to skip on too much, but it will lead to other gigs being released, such as Hammersmith 79 apparently is kind of out there somewhere, ready to go somewhat, and maybe one day they will find, as you say, in a cupboard or under the stairs somewhere, at least one of the gigs recorded in 1975, because that year, as we're going to talk about with On the Level, is something like that is a commercial peak year for Quo, it seems. When you look back at it, you go, well, they had a #1 single, they had a #1 album, and they're just filling up locations everywhere. Of course, there's going to be a live album. It's just like their absolute peak at this point.
Yeah, it was that thing where you've released several albums, and now it's time to do a live album, and you can see this with any band. I mean, Thin Lizzy, it was the same with them. They'd released several albums, and then it was time to do a live one, which they did the following year.
That would be Live and Dangerous?
Yeah, Live and Dangerous, yeah.
Yeah, is it true that a lot of that is overdubs?
There's certainly been some rework done on it. It's too tidy. But you see, that's the thing, isn't it? Where he's, for such a long time, he's had the Quo live album has been his bugbear, where it is very honest, and there are sort of fluffs and gaffs all over it, to the point where he's sort of he's eventually dismissed it as not having a very high opinion of it. Although I've learned recently that this remaster, when it was presented to him by Andy, he enjoyed it. He thinks he's done a good job of it, and he's got a bit more of a positive viewpoint on the album now.
And judging by the previews that are out there, it's rightly so, because it is night and day in some cases.
Yeah, but what do you do? Well, I know what it's like. You play a gig, and as try as you might to try and get everything spot on and right, there are arguments, particularly now, you get like these senior moments. You go, oh no, what did I do that for? Or you go blank, or whatever it is. It's hard to keep that level of intensity up for 2 hours if you really sort of mean it and you're putting your heart and soul into it. It's so I do appreciate that, and certainly the level that Quo were at. And at the end of the day, it's a live concert, and you're there to entertain. The danger is that if you are going, right, we're going to record this, and this is it. This is going to be the live album. So you end up concentrating on what you're doing, not wanting to go and for it to be, you want it to be note perfect, but you're not performing. and consequently, it's not that great in the end. Whereas it needs to be real. It needs to be kind of real.
Well, I do find when I hear tracks that were recorded for that live EP, there is sort of a vibe there that perhaps hasn't been captured so much elsewhere. They seem have a little bit more energy, perhaps.
Yeah. If I'm being honest, that version of Roll Over Lay Down on the live EP, for me, is the best version, released version of Roll Over Lay Down. It's just got this great sound, vibe, everything. I love that slapback echo on it and the great drum sound. It's just so solid, and the atmosphere on it. And if I'm being honest, it's got a better sound than on the original release of the Quo live album. If I had to choose between the version of Roll Over Lay Down on the Quo live album and the live EP, it would be the live EP would be the one that I'd go for. From what I'm hearing on these remasters and the snippets that I've heard so far, I'm really excited about.
When you saw that they had filmed a promo video for the live version of Roll Over Lay Down in a studio, like what were your thoughts?
Well, I was 13. I didn't really know much about these things. And what you've got to remember is that you're watching Top of the Pops. There's no video recorders. There's no YouTube. You get to see something once, and that's it. So when it's the Top of the Pops countdown, and it goes, and now Status Quo, the latest Roll Over Lay Down, you're just so excited to see Quo on the telly, and you're trying to absorb, unless it goes up the charts the following week. You won't see it again. So, on first watch, I wasn't really aware that it was them in the studio. I was just so bowled over to be seeing them on the telly, and it was them. And on that actual, I know it's a video and they're miming to it, but they're really going for it. They're really trying to be as convincing as possible, which is not easy. I've been through the process myself, and it's the hardest thing to do. To try and emulate yourself playing something when you're not. And but it's John in particular. If you watch John, he's the one that makes that video, because he really doesn't hold back. And of course, on repeated plays now, where it is available on YouTube and DVD and everything, you pick up on things like, Rick, for some inexplainable reason, on the end of it, he decides to stop strumming. I don't really know what was going on there, because he's not even playing, and it's like, what was he thinking? I don't know. But then that's the thing. You kind of, when you are miming, you do sort of zone out. You go, it's a strange thing, and it's particularly difficult if you're the lead vocalist and you're having to lip sync. Francis, he was sort of pretty good at it, but there were occasions where there's some clips where he just sort of, you can see that he's not really taking it that seriously. But aside from the awful oh, that cameraman needs shooting. Whoever they were doing that headache-inducing, whatever it wasn't even really in time, was it? It was.
No.
Why do people do stuff like that? It's they're zooming in and out. I guess that's what passed as special effects back then.
Well, let's draw our conversation about the live EP to a close. Do you think we'll ever see a release of it in any form, other than the tracks that are already out there?
I'd like to think that somewhere there is something long forgotten about. I don't know. I'd be surprised if Bob hasn't got anything, because obviously he's the Quo collector. He's the one who seems to hang on to things and hoard stuff, and it would be great. And of course, now where Status Quo as a working entity is sort of drawn to a close, certainly in regard of any future releases and stuff. Although never say never, of course. You're then always looking backward, aren't you? You're saying, well, what have we got?
Yeah.
What have we got on the back shelf? But especially with a band that's got such a long career as Quo. Of course, this is one of the great excitement about the forthcoming live deluxe set. It's because people like me who remembers when it was announced that that's what they were doing. They were going to be recording these 3 gigs in Glasgow. Great excitement. And of course, when the live album came out, it was like, well, this is what could be better, double album, Status Quo Live. But then you're also thinking, well, they did record 3 nights. So it's always been in the back of, certainly my mind, that those recordings still exist. And lo and behold, here we are, about to find out.
Indeed. Well, thank you very much for appearing on the podcast today, Mick. Your band Quo Connection is out at various times this year.
Yeah, we start again in a couple of weeks' time. So we've all had a break, and so we'll be back to it and playing the music that we love, and be good fun.